GM, everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is Thursday, the 8th of November. Let's get straight into it. And as we can see, we had FOMC yesterday. As I expected, or as I said, I thought that FOMC would probably be less volatile than usual. Obviously, we had a lot of volatility on Monday, Tuesday, going into the presidential election, and also after that, with getting a strong Bitcoin breakout. And we have seen Bitcoin continue to show strength. So Bitcoin yesterday was lingering down around sort of 40, sorry, getting my numbers completely muddled up here. 74, sort of 800, 700, I think at the time of streaming. And I talked about, I said, as long as Bitcoin is still closing above the breakout zone, which is this 73,600 area, then we have nothing to worry about. And I'm actually expecting higher prices in the short term for Bitcoin. That is what we've seen. We've seen Bitcoin continue to show strength. Obviously, Jerome Powell came out and the Fed delivered 25 basis point rate cut, which was what the market expected. So the market was happy with that. The Fed did stop short, or Powell did stop short of saying they were going to be buying assets back. So the Fed basically adding assets to their balance sheet. They're not going to be doing that at this stage. But of course, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because just because they've said no in November doesn't mean they're not going to say yes in December or potentially early next year. So the market's going to be front running that. The market likes to call the bluff of the FOMC and the Fed. So let's see what happens now next month. But I think up until that actually happens, the market can remain bullish into that. And that's what we started to see. And obviously Bitcoin, it's showing strength. We're not necessarily blasting to sort of highs at the moment, but we did make a new all-time high again yesterday. Today, we're holding 76,000. We're looking strong. So I personally think over the next few days, we are fairly likely to continue this uptrend. The uptrend strong. Obviously, we haven't had really a back test of this 73.6K level, but it doesn't have to happen. I mean, the strongest breakouts don't always back test. So this is really a sign of strength for Bitcoin. And I mean, when you've got senators like Loomis coming out and saying we're going to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and a few months ago in Nashville, she came out and she said we're going to purchase and we're going to basically get to 1 million Bitcoin for this strategic reserve. That clip is now starting to be shared around. I saw it the other day, put it on my X account as well. And this is really bullish. I think the market really is pricing in all of this now taking place after this Trump win. So, of course, there's bullish news. It goes without saying, Trump, despite winning all the swing states, has also won the Senate and has won the House. Republicans have a majority in both. And a lot of very pro-crypto senators have now been elected seats in those houses. So what we're going to see going forward now is that there's going to be a complete trend shift from anti-crypto and regulatory overreach to now more laid back, more sort of pro-innovation, pro-technology, pro-crypto policies that are going to start to come into government, certainly after Trump takes office in January. I believe it's the January the 20th when he'll be integrated as president. So we've got a little bit of time until he actually takes office, until we actually see those changes start to take place. But of course, the market is just from now until then, it's only just over 2 months away. The market is going to be front running a lot of what's about to come. So I personally think that we will stay bullish probably up until the time he takes office, but certainly over the next sort of few days, next week, probably into the end of November, even throughout most of December, I think this market will stay fairly bullish. And just going down to a lower time frame, we can see there's no concerns really for me at the moment in terms of price action. What I think could potentially happen, and what could be a risk, is that we might get at some point some sort of liquidation hunt which comes down and it sort of takes out some of these lows So we might come down as low as, for example, 72,000. That is pretty much the midpoint of this breakout candle on the 4-hour. Also going to have some 4-hour MAs are starting to rise up, which will provide support here. So I do think at some point we could start to grind higher, and then we might get this flush down just to take out all this liquidity, all of these stops that would have been built up from sort of late longs coming in and getting into the price after the breakout. And then I would expect buying to come in, for strong buying to come in and push us back up to form some sort of wick. So that doesn't have to happen. And of course, we could just keep consolidating and grinding higher and sort of stepping up. But that is one potential risk that I'm sort of saying, look, I'm aware that this could be a risk now going forward, just because we haven't had that retest. So do we get some sort of liquidation candle, some sort of stop hunt, which comes into the market? And obviously, just my only warning is just be careful with taking on really high leverage positions here. You might want to wait for that flush to happen before you do that. But of course, we might just keep on grinding up. And I think, look, we've talked about our targets a little bit higher up. If I just go back to the daily, we've talked about targets up around at the 90K level. Also yesterday, we talked about this 618 Fibonacci retrace level coming in at 88.7. That's the 1.618. So that is obviously our extension target now from this range. So look, I would have thought that over the next sort of month, we will probably make our way up to these prices. I think we get up here probably by year end. So that is still the outlook for Bitcoin. I think any dips down to 73, even 72 are for buying. And yes, we can now look at Ethereum, which has been starting to catch up. We can see Ethereum again outperforming Bitcoin today, and it's running into resistance right now at its 200-day moving average. We spoke about this on the previous couple of streams, that we were looking for price to get above this 2,800 level. It's done that decisively. We got the daily close above that level. We're working on a second daily close now. We're starting to come in to obviously this whole region I said between 2,800 and 3,000 was likely to be resistance. So let's see if Ethereum can muster a move to actually push through this. I think if we start closing candles above the 3K, which is obviously going to be a psychological area, bigger psychological area, with obviously being a big round number of resistance, then potentially from there we can really start to accelerate. And I would think that Ethereum does make its way up to 4,000. That could happen, personally, I think, probably by the end of Q1 next year. Potentially, we might get up there by the end of this year. And if that happens and we see some consolidation early next year, then potentially we could be off to new all-time highs for Ethereum this cycle, which I think if you'd said that a month ago, even, people would have been doubting. I mean, there were all sorts of price targets. People were saying, look, Ethereum could come down to 1,500 as a worst case scenario. But for me, it's like, well, you take one level at a time. Of course, firstly, we need to see a decisive breakdown from this ascending trend line, and then that would take us down to the 2,000 level. That would have been another area potentially that Bitcoin could have grinded out and turned around from. But obviously, the fact that we had a bit of a fake out here and then we've seen a really strong pump gives me a lot of confidence that Ethereum is going to perform well over the next few weeks. So I'm definitely interested in holding on to Ethereum positions here. And like I say, I do think, it's my personal view, but I do think we will hit 4,000 probably within the next 2 to 3 months. And Solana really starting to go through the gears now. I mean, look at this, 1, 2, 3, 4 really mega daily candles now on Solana. Solana has, I mean, we were talking about the resistance here around about sort of 195. It's just absolutely smashed through that. We had the daily close above there. We're now working away at this $200 level, currently at 203. We've got these, well, are those closes or are those wicks? Let's just zoom in a little bit to see what's going on up here with this price action. We can see that our highest cycle close so far was coming in around about sort of 202.6. So if Solana can close here anywhere above 202.6, then that is going to be its highest daily close of the cycle so far. So that is extremely bullish for Solana. And we have been talking about the fact that we expect Solana to outperform throughout the remainder of this bull market. I did say if Bitcoin gets through its all-time highs, I expect Solana to play catch up, getting up to this 200 level, 203, and then probably breaking that and then going for its all-time highs. And just a reminder here where those all-time highs currently are, we can see here that Solana's all-time high is coming in around about 260. So I do think if we get through our cycle highs here, that Solana will really start to accelerate up to probably the first resistance being this 246 area, and then up to the 260 area. So I wouldn't be surprised if we come up here. Potentially we see some consolidation at some point around these prices, and then we start to make another leg higher, assuming that Bitcoin continues to push on to those higher targets that we talked about around about 90,000. So that is the analysis for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. We can check in quickly with the US dollar because that had pushed up. And actually, we saw a nice rejection yesterday from that 786 level. So that is bullish for risk assets. I don't expect us just to, completely roll over, but obviously FOMC, Chairman Powell cutting rates, the Fed seem to be set on their path of rate cuts for the foreseeable future, which is obviously going to put the dollar under some pressure, which is great for risk assets like crypto. So yes, let's see if we can hold this as a high and start to come off a bit more. That would be really bullish for the market. And just looking at the Nasdaq as well. So the Nasdaq here, we can see breaking out new all-time highs for the Nasdaq, and the S&P in the same setup, new all-time highs on the S&P. So stocks are absolutely ripping. Crypto is ripping. The market's on fire. In fact, I should say the market's not yet on fire. Bitcoin's on fire. Solana's on fire. The rest of the market is still heating up, and there are still opportunities to make fantastic gains in this cycle. So I'm going to be coming out with a video later on today where I'm going to be looking at some of my top altcoin picks, my top sector within altcoins. No awards, no surprises as to what that's going to be. I think you all know by now because I've mentioned it a couple of times already, but I'll be sharing some of the trades that I'm looking at, some of the holdings that I'm in, and some of my most bullish picks for the rest of this cycle. So please do subscribe, do like the video if you've enjoyed the content. You don't want to miss out on the alpha that is about to come. And I hope you have a wonderful day. I will talk to you all later on. GM.